So without a doubt, Johnny, the nursery, the future of this event lies squarely with people like that and people with this young bloke sitting right next to us.
Absolutely. Sam Pretscherer, thank you very much for coming along and having a bit of a chat to us today. Would have been better to have been riding, but unfortunately can't do that. So this is the next best thing. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, it was a bit of a bummer about this year not happening, but what can you do? So
seems to be the common word, a bummer, from a junior's point of view.
Well, I suppose the thing is, like everyone's battling with the same issues, but I suppose for us it really is now about looking at what was last year, where are you sitting this year, what happens going into next year, because next year for us will be bigger and better, but it's great to have kids like yourself supporting this event at the level you're in. So for you, same sort of questions, I suppose, to a degree, for your family, they all come along and be all part of what this race is. I'd imagine that you guys bring a lot of gear with you. You set up a lot of things for that weekend. Do you want to just sort of run us through what is that weekend and what does it really mean for you?
yeah, so leading up to Hattah, it's obviously lots of training and everything's just sort of getting together and like getting the race bike organised and all the parts and everything you've got to get to make sure it's all running well and make sure all your pit stops are all good and figure out what you're going to have, like sort of ready set out on a bench and like you have your family there, everyone's already there, so that, like it's just a quick stop and it's just a big weekend and yeah.
So there's a business piece of it where it is the race, the strategy and how you're going to play it out. And there's also that social aspect part of it where the family are all there catering and doing what they need to do for everyone for feeds and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's a big family effort in the whole race. So.
Is that Mum that's dropped you off here today?
Yeah, Mum has, yeah.
So I'm going to do this without notice because I think it's an interesting perspective and she's going to be looking and go, no. If Mum wants to come and sit next to you on the couch, I think it's important we talk about this from a parent's perspective because...
Absolutely.
Sorry, Mum, but you can grab that microphone just there and we'll just switch you into this as well. This is a fast, frightening, physical sport. And for most of the lap, you don't even see him because he's out somewhere else. How do you cope as a mum?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a catch-22 situation. When they're riding Supercross, you can see them and you can see what they're doing. So there's lots of eye closing and fist clenching. And I think he's glad that he can't hear us because there's lots of, things. But when they're out there at Hattah, it's such a great race. But you only see them for that short space of time when they come into the pits. And when they are in for their pit stops, it's everyone's got a job to do and he's concentrating on what he's doing. So there's no chit-chat.
But the other thing I suppose you need to understand, and you guys do that as well, is the fact that even though it's a long event and they're all out in the back of the paddocks all over the place, racing at different levels, the amount of safety that's put into this event by the people that are involved with this is second to none. I mean, you've only got to look at the medical centre where we operate through there, the recovery guys that set up, people staggered around the track everywhere, all the outriders moving around. There's no safer place, I suppose, for your kid to be than at that event when they're racing.
It's crazy how well organised it is. It's just phenomenal. And, if you see the sad truck come over the hill, you're always thinking, when you first see it, it's like, you're looking to see your child's number or your kid's number. But then the next instant, it's like, oh, no, you see it and you think, oh, who's the poor person on there, but the safety wise it's just it's fantastic. And Gary was saying before that if there's a rider down, the riders will stop.
Correct.
No matter where they are in the race, they'll stop and make sure they're okay.
We might have to stop shortly if the backdrop blows away. Sam, what are some of the funniest things you've seen out on the course? Because there are people basically living for the weekend around gum trees and they've got their couches and what's it like out there when you go past spectators?
Oh, you see some pretty wild sights, especially on the straights. There's a couple people lined up on the side every year that always happen to pull something out of the works. It's pretty funny. So, it's always good. You got to keep focused though, because you don't want to stare at them too long.
And you were saying before it's a mental battle, with yourself, and Maxie was saying the same thing, that you just got to be focused. Do you talk to yourself on the bike?
No, I'm pretty well just focus and try and get the job done, and what's in front of you is there's no point trying to focus on other things. Like what's ahead, you're thinking 2 corners ahead so that you can hit all your lines correct and make sure you can you're always on the point so that you know where the other person is and where you can push hard and where you've got to be careful. So Yeah.
And of course, when you get into the pit area, a lot of that's that conversing really quickly while the bike's getting refueled and things are happening where, you know, the parents are telling you that's how far in front he is or how far behind you got to push, you know, like it's those small bits and then it just sends you off for another whole lap where you just got to drill it into your head. What is it I got to do now on this lap before I come back in again?
Yeah, like I think there was 2 years where I've made, 2 years where I've made positions through the pits just from pit stops alone. So it's it's a lot of it's in and out, that's for sure.
And it's an amazing way to watch this guy in action when he is out there because he knows his strategy very well. They rehearse it, they go through it, they understand it in the lead up to the event. But things change so quickly in that event, and you can see that reaction where they turn left or right in strategies because they need to make it work now, not later. It's now, push.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that all happening. And poor old mum's in the background making sure that she's got plenty to eat and drink and all the rest of the bits are all done. It's incredible to watch that little area operate, and there's so many of them all stacked next to one another doing exactly the same thing.
It might sound like a strange question outside the sport. Do you have to remind yourself to breathe? Because it's pretty intense out there and you're pretty focused.
Oh, not really. You just
That question was Mum, by the way. That wasn't for you.
I don't know about Mum. I think it's Dad. I think he's more worried about the fuel calculations really than anything else. So, but you can see the concentration on Sam's face when he comes in because you can tell him something a million times before the race, and he'll come in like and he'll ask you. Just something that's, minutely simple because he's so focused on what he's doing. He's just wants to make sure that he's got it.
I find it quite interesting that, you can tell him all week, stack the dishwasher, do this, do that, mow the lawn.
Don't get me started.
But for a split second when it's like, you got to push, boy, go, he gets that and he goes.
Yeah. It's great to see, though. It's great to see the boys that, when they finish the race, though, when they all come in, and, they're all mates. Like, they're competing against each other out there, but you come once they get their helmets off.
The camaraderie when they're standing around after the event's finished, and I'm talking about right where they finish, that's incredible to be in there and amongst them and talking to them and watching what they're doing. And they are all high-fiving and, all the rest of it, because it's a big deal. It's the one event for the year that takes up so much time but is so worth being at that front end of the field. You just got to keep pushing, It's very important. It's a very proud moment for you guys as guys. It's
a great sport, and they really get along. The friendships they make in it.
It's so good to catch up with you guys. You must be pumped, Sam. I made Mum come and sit next to you on the couch in front of like a worldwide audience. So
end of it.
Apologies for that. It's always good to catch up with you guys. 364 days to go, okay?
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
From juniors...